And we talked about this when we chatted the other day, but you said the original title of the book was around something like how to be an activist and not go mad, which makes complete sense. But tell us a little bit about the journey into writing this book, and how you figured out what these 5 steps were, and why it's so much more about a philosophy and a psychology rather than a pure energy.
Well, I will try to summarize. I think essentially the first thing to say is that I did not become a politician because I'd always wanted to be a politician. And my journey into leading the Women's Equality Party and holding that post for 4 years was an absolute roller coaster of learning, of self-reflection, of everything. We launched that party over the 4 years that I was doing that job. The world of politics changed vastly. We, it was like there was something new every couple of months, and we went from, I think, feeling very new and optimistic and joyful for the first sort of year to it feeling like a battle, because we had harnessed this very joyful energy to begin with, and then it felt like the political landscape got darker and darker and more divided. And
so this was 2015 going into Brexit and Trump.
Yeah. So there was the EU referendum, and the division that brought. There was the election of Trump. There was the continuing gap of between rich and poor. There was an understanding of the scale of the environmental catastrophe that is unfolding. It was just so big, and it was coming at us every day. And there were, we were a bunch of, that was our strength. Like we weren't professional politicians. We were not people who had gone into it thinking, yes, I'll be a politician, and I will go to this university, and then I will be a special advisor, and then I will, there is very much a sort of a way into politics that is a recognized way in for many people, although I'm glad to see that trend is not so much, is becoming less, that path is less well trod than it was. It really felt like a roller coaster, and it felt like there were a lot of people thriving from setting us at odds with each other. And the environment in which I was going out to talk about women's rights, something really basic and essential, got very aggressive and very hostile, very frequently being sent out in this sort of pantomime setup where I would be put up against a misogynist in a nice suit, whose opening gambit would be, women have got enough equality, and I would be sort of portrayed as shrill or hysterical or a feminazi, a man-hater. And it was tough. It was gladiatorial, and the after effects of many of those debates were, days of toxic abuse, online, offline. I would be campaigning. The 2017 general election campaign was really brutal. There were people who would cross the street to shout at me, and someone even spat at me, and there were environments I had to leave. I remember being escorted out the back of a radio station rather than going out the front because I'd been getting so much abuse that day. There was concern that people might come and find me. It was right in your face. And I lost, by the end of that period, I was knackered, and I had lost I think the embers of my activism had burned very low. I'd also been on a discovery of intersectionality, which had been very difficult for me at times, and I had understood that I needed to shut up and listen more often. So understood that I was a white middle-class feminist leading a feminist party, and that I needed to make space for women from different communities and from minoritized communities with perspectives that were not being seen and heard. And all of that came together eventually to a place where I thought I need to pass the mic, and I need to lead by stepping aside. Um, and after that period, I basically went to ground for about 3 months. I lay on my sofa with the curtains shut, and I watched every single episode of The Good Wife, which is excellent, by the way. I thoroughly recommend it. Um, but I couldn't quite switch off. There was this voice going round and round my head, which was, how do you do this? How do you keep doing this? How can I be useful? I felt like I had found my purpose. I'd always, for the last 10, 15 years, I have felt, that my purpose is to be useful, and that it is a feminist purpose, and that the work I want to do is very much geared towards achieving equality for women from all backgrounds. Um, but I couldn't work out how to do it in a way that was not going to feel so bruising and tiring, and yeah, and it all felt very big, and I felt very small. And normally that's a good thing, I think it is a good thing to understand how very small we are, because actually I personally find that a comfort in many respects. I find a sense of perspective important, and also an understanding that you can't do anything as an individual, you have to do it as a movement. But in that moment, I felt very tiny and very lost. And this is a very long roundabout answer to your question, but that was the point where I realized, well, maybe it's not a pitched battle. Maybe this is a down in a series of ups and downs, and that actually it is cyclical, and that I'm taking a rest now while other people are on their A game, and other people are out there killing it, and that's fine. I need to rest. And I started thinking about, how does this look as a cycle, as a philosophy, as something that I can say I have subscribed to for the rest of my life, because I can't see myself not doing this work. But where are the areas of mutual experience with other activists where we might learn from and support each other? And that was where it started. And then I sort of got back on my feet, and I started reading, and I started interviewing and talking to and hearing from and listening to lots of other campaigners to work out, or some form of cycle that I can encourage encourage people along, that will be nourishing and sustaining, so that we can manage the downs as well as the ups.
It's a wonderful answer, and thank you for your honesty. As lots of people are saying, there's just lots of love for you, Sophie, and admiration. So thank you for answering that so deeply, and it's also just a really good reflection, I think, of what you've written, because there's so many how-to books out there in the world of nonfiction. We know this. They're mainly defaulted to like how to be better in your own little bubble, right? Productivity and the rest of it. And some of those cut through and make a real difference to all of us. But also in the kind of how to make a difference in the world, there's a whole library of books, as I'm sure you know. But one of the things that I appreciated about this, and I know others have this month from what they've been saying, is that this isn't just a like, okay, number one, right, here's how to write your press release for your campaign. And it's like, it's a philosophical toolkit. And for like, okay, when you come at this again in 3 years' time, or in 10 years' time, or when you're trying to sort out your family disputes later in life, or whatever it is, this is a useful way of
I hadn't thought of that.